Welcome everyone, this is a Josh Warren Dr. Mulder 9-dial wishing machine. What? There's no such thing as a wishing machine that has dials. The wishing machine concept came from Harry Stein from his book Mind Machines You Can Build, and it had no dials on it at all. And generally wishing machines you don't have dials or you only have one. Real wishing machines are thought form amplifiers. They have nothing to do with tuning. But like everything else with this ridiculous tool, it's all wrong and cheaply made. First of all, you've got this Michael Craft box, about $1 or $2, and it's just cheapy, junky. You've got a big slab of plastic here, which looks horrible and looks like it was made by a 12-year-old, and I think that's insulting 12-year-olds. You don't have a copper plate. What you've got here is a copper sheet, because this is very inexpensive. They slapped on an antenna, which may or may not be needed. Some people think you are because you're broadcasting. Certainly nothing wrong with that. But again, it's a very cheap antenna. It's very low quality. It's so small. Now, the biggest problem here, and of course, you know, they copied everything from my other machine, including an input and an output jacks where you can make this modular for whatever insane reason you would do that for. But here's the big joke of it all. While the actual dials are numbered in terms of the actual dial itself, there are no numbers in the rings of dials here, as you can see. So what number are you on now? How do you tune this? You're supposed to guess, or you had to count one. I mean, what kind of an idiot puts together something that doesn't have the numbers in this area here so you know what the number is without having to count it? I've never seen that before, but of course, when you get Warren involved with anything and his incompetent crew, look out. These are people that are allegedly hooked up with the criminal element and the Satanists that are in their area, including, as was the case, Charles Cosamato and other people who have no credibility whatsoever. They know nothing, they have no backgrounds, they've done no research, and basically they're just looking to go out there and produce junk. They have not trained properly, they know nothing, and they put together junk like this. You probably got with this entire thing here maybe $20, and they've sold these for hundreds. And, you know, that's not a problem if you put out quality stuff, but this is just junk. And, of course, we have opened this up, so we're going to show you exactly what's inside of this monkey piece. We usually don't do this except for Access members, but let's take and Patreon members, but let's show you what's inside of this since I have opened this a while ago to look at it. Now, they have crystals in here, and of course this is a non-electric unit. They do have electric units, God knows what that looks like. They've got it tied up to a piece of paper that has a little bit of a energy chart here, and of course that's underneath the actual out plate that you put there. Now, that's okay in its basic structure, I guess, but I mean, and the wiring, as we can see here, it's your better thick wiring, so it's not, the wiring itself is not too bad. The pots are your typical aluminum potentiometers. The crystals look like your typical cheapo crystals you get that are glued together. But the wiring itself appears, what do we got here? Let's see if it's in proper sequence. It does seem to be sequenced properly, meaning 1 goes to 2, etc. Considering what I've seen in some units, this is not too bad in terms of the weight of the wiring and how it is actually put together. So the internal guts are certainly better than the external guts, which are pretty pathetic. But I mean, that's a typical flow radionic unit with the wiring in it. There's certainly nothing unusual there. And we could say whether crystals are good or not to use. Generally, crystals can be. You do have to be careful because they can, if your unit is not producing enough energy, they can hold it. So it's a typical 9-flow instrument, and powered with crystals and a little bit of sacred geometric shapes there. Not necessarily terrible, but what is terrible is why people will use crappy boxes, not number their dials, use bad stuff on the outside. This could have been made into a decent unit, but it's amazing how people have no aesthetics, they don't use quality tools, etc. Just amazes me. And of course, the flow pattern here is very, very typical, but that's not a wishing machine. People don't understand that. If you dial dials in, you're using it as a radionic machine. Now, what he did was use the reverse. You dial in a problem, and then you subtract that from 10, meaning each dial from 10, meaning if it was an 8 on the first dial, you would subtract that from 10, get 2, and you would put in the reverse rate. And this is how he trains people on how to use his units. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. That's a way of using the units, but you certainly could do that. Well, here again is the goofy dials, and it's just a piece of paper that is done there. So that gives you a good view of what's in these units, how they're made, and of course, there is, because of the pattern, the wires, and everything else, you are creating a radionic unit, unlike so many other people that are not doing it. So, for the price and everything else, but the problem is you're dealing with people that are not reputable, that are hooked up with bad people, that are involved in alleged criminal activities with a bunch of very bad people. And apparently at one time, they were very close with Charles Casamato, who's a very disreputable person, who I worked with for years and continues to bumble along. And knows nothing about electronics. And, of course, this person knows nothing about electronics either, even though the pots are wired correctly. But there's a lot of potentially missing items out of there. And, you know, there's more to radionics than using a few crystals. There's all sorts of other factors to it. And that's kind of an old way of thinking and kind of very backward. So I hope you've enjoyed this view of the quasi-wishing machine. And lots more to come. Generally, for us to go in depth and to discuss units, you need to go to Patreon or All Access. And we'll go into things even in this unit in depth and look at it. You got a pretty good look at it here in general, just to give you a feel of things. But if you want more detailed information and go more into the occult engineering that is radionics, well, you need to be part of IGOS and a supporting member, which is only $8 a month. If you can't afford $8 a month, you have a real problem. And we certainly aren't going to share vital information with people that won't support us. So stay tuned, go down and go to our links, support us, and much more to come.